Today, I really wanted to get into a series of calls that will dive us deeper into our relationship with ourselves. Hi, JC. I have to say that from when I was very young, and I'm sure you can relate to I'm sure many of us can relate to this. Like, as we grow up, we often have like a really harsh inner critic because as children, we are always being told what not to do, what we should be doing, right? Like, let me know if you can relate to this. Because the consciousness on the planet was not really set up for like children to be who they are, right? And so I notice this a lot of the times when I'm with my daughter is I really have to catch myself when I like think that she should be doing something other than what she's doing. Of course, like she has to be safe, but I don't need to be telling her what to do when she's just exploring herself, right? And so many of us have had this inner critic in our heads that is always telling us like, don't do that, you should be doing this. And it can be like exhausting. So when I really started to notice this, I was very young, I would say like 21 or so in my accounting job. And I had this inner critic that was like telling me how I was supposed to be living my life. And this is when I really started to dive deep into yogic philosophy. Like that was my starting point of all of my practices. And that's why I wanted to bring it in the membership this month. If you're part of it, many of you are in that membership. But if you wanted to join that membership, that's what we're doing this month is yoga. And it's a specific yoga. And why I wanted to bring this through here today is that it places you in the center of your circumstances. And when I started to dive deep into like the philosophy of uniting these disparate aspects of ourselves, bringing back into wholeness the things that we are rejecting, right? And so the moment we notice that inner critic, often we'll like get upset with ourselves or we'll judge it. And what this does is it continues the dialogue going within our bodies that there's something wrong with us or that things should be different than they are. And so when we place ourselves in the center, what we're doing is we're building a very deep relationship with ourselves. And that's what I want to bring through in these series of calls is like the ways in which we can create wholeness inside of ourselves and seeing life as this metaphor or this mirror that is reflecting what is going on in our minds. And that's what the yoga practice does on the mat. Like it is amazing how much the body and how much we move in the body and the specific aspects of our body are just showing the things of our mind. And so I wanted to get into it today, you being the center of your circumstances. So the universe is a macrocosm, right? The universe contains the galaxies, it contains everything, and is in an ever expansive state. And so we, as you can call it a child of God or a fractal of source consciousness, we are a microcosm of this larger macrocosm. And so there's so many teachings that say whatever you're looking for outside of yourself, you'll find inside of yourself. Or you don't need to look from outside to find what's inside. Like the only thing you can truly know is yourself. And that's where, who am I? That question, that book, the like teaching comes in. Who truly am I? Because when we grow up, we spend so much of our time looking outside of ourselves for validation, looking outside of ourselves for the answers, right? How many of you like have a question and you're like, okay, I gotta go ask someone, or I gotta go on Google, or I gotta go do this. When really all we need to do is tune ourselves inside, and we have all of the answers inside of us. Because by virtue of being a fractal or a microcosm of the macrocosm, we already contain all the information inside of us, right? We just have veils and veils and veils and veils of conditioning that are holding us back from that which we desire to know. But it's in there, right? And so as a center of our own inner universe, when we really start to go inside and understand ourselves, and this is where self-awareness and self-observation comes in, we truly begin to see that everything that is outside of us is a co-creation. And when we're playing this dialogue of you as the center of your universe, it is that you as this like tiny piece of stardust that is split off from the whole, that yet also contains the entire whole inside of it, is this almost sense of self-responsibility that you're really here to go inside and understand yourself and your place within the larger collective whole. And so I really like to think of this metaphor, and like, if you're not tripping out on the beehive, it's time to start. But Rudolf Steiner has a really beautiful lecture, like the 7 lectures on bees. And it's just so beautiful because it's very spiritual. But the beehive is like a really perfect representation of like collective consciousness. And so the bees, right, each collectively, like they have their whole organization that's happening. They're all working together so well. You know, they like travel together in this like hive when they change and move homes. They build their structures. They build everything from within themselves, right? They just go out and they get the pollen. And so each bee individually by itself goes out and fulfills its role, and they all have different roles. And it comes back to the hive and makes a collective whole. And so one bee alone can't do anything, right? It won't live. It like, you know, it can't do anything. Like the hive is so intelligent because of the sum of its parts. And the whole is always greater than the sum of its parts. So it's not just like these 10 bees together. It's like what they create. They create the hives, they create the honey, they create the propolis, they create, you know, the beeswax. And they're doing it together. And what they're creating is so much more than what a bee could individually do alone. And so this is where like the magic and the mysticism comes in, because when you co-create with reality, what you're creating is so much more than you could have ever imagined, because it's not just the sum of the parts. Does that make sense? And so I really encourage you to, like, when we step inside of ourselves and understand ourselves as like a piece that is played within the larger orchestra of existence, and we're here to play a note in the symphony, and then together the symphony is so much of a greater whole, we realize like there's this immense sense of self-responsibility that gets to come through of you becoming more of who you are, because it's like an essentiality for all of this magic, the orchestration to take place, the music to come through. And so when we are resonating in chaos, or not resonating, dissonance, right? In chaos, what ends up happening is that everyone's just bumping into each other. Nothing's getting done. Things are in disarray. Things are in dissolution. It looks like everything's falling apart. But if you look at nature and you look at the cosmos and you look at what's truly happening, is it's this ever expansive state. And so this is what all practices that are true practices that are going to bring you into this expansion will show you, is that the way to life is an opening and the way to death is a closing down, right? Or dissolution or disintegration, right? So anytime we're in these expansive states, anytime we're feeling expansion in our lives, anytime like from center we're opening out into like the vast world of co-creation, we are in fertility, we are in opening, we are in when aging reverses, when we like feel more vital every single day. This is when our higher self is talking to us, right? Every time the ego's getting in the way, oh, it's safe over here, it's comfortable over here, don't go over there. Like the inner critic comes in, like all the things come in and we're judging it and we're saying it's wrong. And you know, you close and you close and you close and you close down. We start to move into the state of dissolution, of decay. And so really life is about navigating your center, like holding yourself in the center of yourself. And when you find center, and that's why like the yoga practice I teach, the Katona yoga, that I'm really going to start to bring through more, because it's just so incredible. And I'm actually going to link a free class, or you can go on the app and go under the free practices, and I uploaded one for you so that you can just do it. But it's really all about finding yourself in the center of the posture. Because the thing is whatever you're doing in the body, you're doing in the mind. And so when you're not centered in your yoga practice, when you're not centered in like how you're moving about life, your whole life is going to feel chaotic. You're always going to get tipped over. It's like when you hang a painting on a wall and it's slightly off center and someone slams the door and it falls, right? There's a reason there's like a leveling tool. And so what we're constantly wanting to do is to like level our body out so that our corners are all meeting up, so that when life knocks us over, we're holding our center, right? And so there was this moment in the hospital when the doctors came in, the neurosurgeon after my brain surgery and the heart surgeon came in, and they were like, do you know how lucky you are? And I was like, no, there's no such thing as luck. Like I have the tools and I have the practices that allowed me to like move through this, you know? And so that's where I really want you to understand, like, there is no such thing as luck. There's no such thing as lucky people. Like, yes, we're giving different proportions and like the cosmic stardust and the constellation that we came in with, but we create our own world. We create our own health. We create everything from inside of ourselves, right? Because it's a center expanding out. And by virtue of the universe constantly expanding out, we too constantly expand out when we're living in our health and our vitality, right? And so there's actually a really, I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but the Joe Rogan podcast, when he talked to, I think it's Terrence Howard, and he talks about like how like, you know, we're like in like the dark ages of math, where like math doesn't really make sense. And like, it's like a weird construct of our reality. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. And it's 3 hours long, so you can like up the speed to like 2x and it'll go by faster. But he talks about everything from center expanding out. Everything from the sun is coming out from the center of the sun and expanding out. And so the earth is always moving away from the sun. And there's just like this beautiful sweet spot where he calls it the Goldilocks zone, where like when a planet hits that Goldilocks zone, it can finally sustain life and contain life. And so anything that's happening in the cosmos is happening in you. Like we are always a reflection, right? We are a co-creator with source. And so we are an extension of, and that extension is coming through us and out into our communities. And so when you imagine yourself in the center of yourself and you imagine yourself with the sphere around you, that's what life is. It is you really truly learning how to understand how to navigate your circumstances with grace and with ease, right? So that when shit does hit the fan, you have the practices to be like, I'm cool as a cucumber. Doesn't matter what's going on. Like, yes, you're going to have feelings. Yes, you're going to have emotions. Yes, you're in a human experience. You're going to feel things in your body. It's not to not feel, but it's to know that, oh, I got the tools. I know how to listen to myself. I know when I need to rest. I know when I need to like go out and do. And so that's the key thing here is that like sustainability doesn't mean continuous like growth like to an unscalable amount. Right? This expansion moves in different phases. It can be like a burst of expansion like summer. You know, summer looks like everything's opening out, the flowers are blooming, the fruit's coming on the trees, where we have this perception of winter that it all dies. But what's actually happening is that it's still expanding, but it's resting, right? And underneath the soil, there's actually a lot going on. Leaves are composting, the fertility bed is taking place. And that's why when you need to rest and you rest, you're not actually contracting, you're not reverting back, right? None of that is happening because you've already laid the foundation. What's happening when you're resting is that like the composition and the fertilities are like anchoring into your system. And that's when new life can sprout through, right? And so life is always going to be this interplay of the elements and the seasons and all of this. And that's why it's all seasonal work, right? Like when we're in the summer of our life and we're in the summer of the season, there's a lot opening out, right? When we're in the summer of our life and it's winter, it's like there's a little piece of us that like gets to rest a little bit. And so you just get to know where you are in time and space. And that's the whole point of center to circumference. Like when you're the center of your universe and you position yourself well and you know what season of life you're in, what season is happening around you, where the people are around you, you're always constantly positioning yourself to get the grace that is always available to you, right? And so the metaphor of alchemy is like fire and water, right? Fire always rises up and it burns through the patterning and it burns through the stuff that no longer serves us. And it's like our spirit lifting up out of our body. And it's our in-breath, right? When we take that in-breath, it's like it's an effort to be able to breathe in. Like the moment you come onto earth, you take that in-breath, you're like making the effort to come onto the planet, right? And then every time it's the out-breath, it's the grace raining down. It's when the leaves are falling. It's the letting go. It's allowing yourself to be open and available and receptive to what is raining down for you. It's when you take your last out-breath and you leave the planet, right? You don't have to try. It just happens. And so there's this constant clarity that you're playing when you're in center to circumference of effort and grace, right? You make your effort when the timing is right, and you rest when it's time to rest. And so this is the whole point of really understanding like center to circumference. The moment you're lined up, the moment you're sitting in the center of yourself, right? If you're hanging out too far back, it's just going to get like hard to like carry the muscles on your back, to carry like the burdens of the memories. The moment you bring yourself forward and up, you immediately put yourself in a different atmosphere. You put yourself in a different mood. And that's why when you really know how to move the body and you know how to become fluid in the time and space continuum that like your soul is stuck inside of, like life becomes more fluid because life becomes a reflection of you, like it always is. And so whatever you're looking at, what you're seeing is exactly what you need to see to grow. And so often we look at life and we're like, oh, I wish it wasn't like that. I wish this was different. God, I wish I was more like that person, or I wish my business looked like that. Like how many of us have these thoughts, right? When in truth, it is exactly how it is for you to grow. And so those things that you're looking at that you're judging are just like inner judgments inside of yourself, or when we're judging people, right? And so when we take the responsibility back inside of ourselves, when we take that position of center within ourselves, whatever is happening to us is not happening to us, right? It's happening for us. And the moment it's happening for us, that's when you can begin to extract the gold out of it. And so that's why there's four options in Buddhism. That's what they say, right? So you can have a good situation and make it better. You have a good situation and make it worse. You can have a bad situation and make it better. You can have a bad situation and make it worse. And so there's only 4 things you can do. But the trick is to learn how to take whatever situation you're in and make it work for you. And that's why I think yoga is so magical, and why I think like the philosophy is so magical, and the philosophy of personal responsibility and self-awareness and self-ownership is that you get to turn into the magician of your life. You get to put yourself in the driver's seat and be like, I'm driving here and I don't like it. So should I change directions, right? The thing is that you get to choose. And the choice is always going to be like, what makes me feel more expansive? And that's not what makes life easier, right? There's a difference, because what makes you contract is often the ego, and that's where it's safe and comfortable. It's what we know. It's where we've already been. It's where we come into the routine and the rhythm and the habits of our life. But the moment we want change and we decide, I don't want to drive there anymore. I don't want to see this site anymore. Like, I'm so sick of it, right? We own that and we drive somewhere else. We're going to have completely different sites on this side. And we're going to see new things. And it's going to be terrifying because who knows what we're going to see over there. But the thing is that's where it comes in. That's where the opportunity comes in. That's where the potential comes in. That's where the thing that you didn't expect comes in. And so my favorite gardener, this is my favorite quote, and I think about it all the time, is I feel bad for the gardener that planned his garden, because then he gets exactly what he planned for. And there's no room for the mystery to come in. There's no room for like that special plant that would have grown. You know, there's no room for like, oh, what if this, like there's the fluidity that flows in. It's like, maybe I'll try this, maybe I'll try that. And so when we plan too much and hypermanage and like, you know, micromanage or whatever it's called, like we get what we expect. But what we expect isn't the expansion. The expansion is actually what we don't know. And so when we're in the center and there's this constant feeling of like expansion out of ourselves, this is the way to life. This is the way of nature. This is the way of fertility. This is the way to really know that like when you're in a state of expansion, there's limitless possibilities. Anything could come in, but you just have to be open and available to the thing. And so there's so often in life we're like, I want this. And then it comes through in a way that's like different than our mind thought it should be. And we're like, no, that's not it. And we shut down the universe for giving us exactly what we wanted, right? And so there's this big trick in life is to know that you are weaving the tapestry of your life. And that's magic. And when you tell people that and their life is really hard and they're down on themselves and they're feeling like a victim, it's going to be really hard because they're weaving that, right? But when you can step into the seat of your self-ownership, of knowing that you're in the center of the universe, of knowing that by virtue of being here in a body on the planet, that you are a fractal piece of the whole, like you get to weave whatever you want. And so that mindset, that knowingness, that positioning in your body, when you find that fluidity in your body, anything can come in. And that's the magic. And that's why when I first started doing yoga and I finally found the right mentors and I finally understood like what I was doing on the mat, it was to have a dialogue with creation, right? To really understand like our bodies are designed so perfectly, so beautifully, right? So cosmically. Like every single person fits their body. Like every single person's knee fits into their armpit. Try it. Are you trying it? If it doesn't, you have a tight back muscle, you know? And so when you learn to fit and fold yourself into yourself and you learn where you don't fit, you learn specific aspects of your organs. If you can't get your knee in your armpit, your kidney's blocked, right? And your kidneys are your ancestry. It's your, you know, your bloodline. It is your bones. It's your head hair. It's your fluidity. It's the water element of the body. When the kidneys gets blocked, this is our life force. It's our battery. It's our vitality. The adrenals sit on top. So if our adrenals are constantly spiked up and our nervous system is freaking out, and if your arches are really high and it's like always high alert, right, then your kidneys are just going to get constricted and constricted. And then what happens is you age faster, right, because you're draining your batteries. And so a lot of people will live this way. They will live fast and hard, right? And then they'll die sooner. They'll be in old age and they won't be thriving. When I met my yoga mentor, she was like 70 and was doing like the craziest yoga moves, was so happy, was just so stoked on life. And I was like, you're the one. It is not the Indian man in India. It is the woman, the modern day woman that's like 70 and has like an amazing body. And so we have to really be careful of who we choose to be our mentors, right? They have to like fit with you. There has to be a fit, because the truth is the moment you learn to fit yourself, you fit everyone. Like you fit the fits around you, because the universe will start fitting you. Right? The moment we're like, why are all these people coming in? I don't like any of these people. I don't like the people in my life. Like, what is happening? They're annoying me. Like, who's found yourself in that job where you're like, ooh, I wouldn't actually choose this, right? But you are, but you're not playing with these fits. And so when we learn to fit ourselves in our body, we just fit our reality. And what we're doing is we're just deconditioning. Like that's what muscles are. Muscles are the memories and the conditioning that we've incurred through moving through time in a linear mind on this planet. And so when we're told certain things as a kid, and we get the inner critic, and we get whatever traumas and wounds we get, and then like life happens to us, and we keep like creating the same experiences again and again because we're a magnet for those experiences, because they're still alive in our bodies. Those muscles get tight. Eventually what happens is that breaks, right? And so we always will break our strength. We'll always break what we overdo. And in a funny way, where we've learned to be good is where we've like essentially like habited or patterned, right, in our minds. And so if we learn to tell ourselves a story of like, oh my God, like I'm the boss, I'm gonna go out in the world, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna make those deals, I'm gonna sign those checks, and the right arm gets so tight because that's the arm of that, right? And then eventually what breaks is the right arm because you're overusing it. And so the whole point is to find this more well-rounded approach to our bodies, to our lives. And so if one part of your body is weak, it's just going to be a part of your consciousness that you can't access. And it becomes really magical because when you play with it this way, it's like there's a whole universe inside of you, and there's a map. Like there's a very specific map. And when you learn to like read it in your own body, and I've read it in thousands of people's bodies again and again and again when I used to do yoga privates all the time, it's undeniable. Like you can tell everything about someone by looking at how their body is positioned in time and space, by looking at which eye is bigger, by looking at which side of their face is brighter, by looking at which hand is stronger, which hand is weaker, which leg is stronger, which leg is weaker, by looking at where they don't go, where their messy room is, because it's going to be in their minds. And so it's very revealing. Like the body is very revealing because, as I said in the last call, it's a communication tool. It's just communicating with the world through what the mind knows. And so if the world that you're seeing is not the world that you desire, you have to change the tuning of the communication tool so that the mind starts shifting, because it's very hard to go right into the mind, right? And so how many people have done, like before you've even done yoga or any awareness practices, you sit in meditation and you're like, wow, this is hard. My mind won't stop chattering to me. My back hurts. Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You start thinking about dinner, you're hungry, your stomach's growling, and all of a sudden you're spiraling and you're like, wow, I feel worse than I did before. Because that's not the access point, right? There's this specific sequence that you need to go through, understand the body, understand the breath, and the mind opens up for you. And so there's so many ways, there's so many tools, there's so many techniques that you can use in this world. But the truth is, your body is designed in such a specific, unique way. And when you understand that, when you truly understand that, you will really understand your fit in your reality. And it's mind-blowing because now you can use it, right? Everything around you is data and information. And if it's coming to you and you don't like it, you're like, well, what do I do? How am I supposed to change this? I don't know what to do. How do I reorient myself? But the moment you have the tool, the key, right? You put the key in the lock and all of a sudden it all opens up. And now all the information that's coming to you is like, oh, this is so interesting. This is blowing my mind. Like, this is exactly what's in my mind. And I've been looking for it. And I don't want to attract this pattern in anymore. And I don't want to be stuck here anymore. And I don't want to feel this way anymore. And then you have the tools. You have the tools to move the body in a different way, to understand how you're continuously setting yourself up, which muscles are overworked that are magnetizing in those similar experiences of like, where you're over muscling it. Because the truth is you don't need to use any muscles to do yoga, right? When you're working in the structure, the geometry, and the bones. And so everything is positioning, right? The more you sit back on your tail and you're just sitting here listening to me, wherever you're sitting, it just starts hurting. And your back muscles start to get strong. And your back body is your past and it's your memories. And so the more that those build up and build up and build up, they're diminishing your potential. And then you can no longer breathe on the front of the body and you can't breathe into the lungs. And now all of a sudden, this one thing that lets your muscles lighten up, which is the breath, is no longer there anymore. And it just gets denser and denser and denser. And so then you started to spiral into contraction. And so all of it is to really know, like, how are you positioning yourself? Because again, it's a deal that you make. You're making deals with yourself all the time. You're making the deals with the world, right? And you're always on the receiving end of the deal. So you just have to ask yourself, is this the deal I want to make? right? And so in the Tao Te Ching, I don't know if there's any people that like study Taoism in here and just like love, I mean, obviously if you're here, right? I love Taoism and I love the 5-element cycle because it's just so available, right? It's so available and cross-referenced. Like nature's nature, and nature doesn't lie. Like there's seasons, there's things sprouting in spring, there's things flowering in summer, there's things turning into seed in autumn, and there's a rest in winter. And that's how we move. That's how we move through the cycles of our life. That's how we're moving through the seasons with nature. That's how, you know, like really everything operates. A business operates that way. Like it all operates that way. And if it's not in alignment with like fertility and opening and expansion. And so in Taoism, there's a saying, the way to life is to be supple and soft, as a child is, and the way to death is to be rigid and hard. And so the trick is when you want to manipulate the timing that you have on the planet, first, enjoy your life, because you're not going to want to live longer if you're not enjoying being in the body, the people that are around you, the things that you're doing, right? The first is learn how to enjoy this, learn how to cultivate joy, learn how to cultivate abundance, learn how to cultivate grace, learn how to love to be inside of yourself. And that's why I'm doing these series, is because like it starts with the relationship you have with you, right? And then the second way is to know how to move your body in such a way that you can manipulate aging, right? If you can keep your body fluid and pliant, if you keep doing the practices, the physical work, right? The breath work, the meditation, like there's a whole bunch of free practices and the free practices on the app. When you can keep doing this again and again and again, you're moving yourself towards life, right? And this is where you get to lengthen the amount of time you have in the summer of your life. And so this is where you can push menopause, right? Backwards. You can also push it forwards. But all of this is really to know that the body is plastic, just like the mind is. Like there's an incredible malleability that you can play with if you know what you're doing. But if you're sitting around all day, this is my like, my tough love. If you're sitting around all day doing nothing, your body's not going to open up, because that's not like in a sense, like that's the course that will take you closer towards the grave. Because there's nothing in nature that's not participating, right? And so when we're not participating in our health and our well-being, in the expansion, like every creature comes up, it goes out, it like does its thing it needs to do. It's not like, I don't need to do this today, whatever, you know, it's just an obedience to what it's here to do. And when we can move into greater obedience with what we're here to do, we realize that like we're a beehive, like we're here to participate. We're here to find our fit. We're here to find the center of our own circumstances so that, you know, when life knocks us over, we quickly bounce back up because our people need us, our community needs us, right? But when we need to rest and recover, we also know how to do that, because you're no good to anyone if you're depleted, right? You're no good to anyone if you're exhausted. You're no good to your family if you're showing up to it angry, enraged, yelling at everyone, right? And so this is where your practices come in. Your practices are to instill joy inside of your being. They're to give you the tools that you need so that you can have energy, so that you can feel good, so that you can, you know, have this vibrant health, this good relationship with yourself. Because the better the relationship you have with you, the better relationship you'll have with everyone around you. And the more you'll pull in the people that are also like that. Who's been around someone that you're like, they just bring you down and you feel it in your body and you're like, oh, I love this person, but gosh, you know, or just in life in general, in your grocery store, and you just like hear someone mutter under their breath and you're just so mad all the time. It's like, you have a choice. You have a choice, you know? And until you know that you have a choice, you have no idea that you have a choice. But I'm telling you, you have a choice. If you're watching this video, you have a choice. You have a choice to participate. You have a choice to choose joy. And no, it's not natural, right? Otherwise, everyone would be joyful and everyone would be filled with love. But behind all the conditioning, behind all the layers, behind all of these buildings that we erect of like false self and trying to please people and like shift and mold and like think that we need to do the things that we don't want to do, behind all of that is pure love and expansion, right? And so we're just removing the blocks to love. That's all we're doing here. You don't have to like cultivate love. You have to remove what is blocking you from love, because you are love, because you are part of creation. And so that's where we remove it all away from us until we find our true center, right? What we're truly here to do, what we're, the frequency that we're truly here to be in. And it always comes back to like, I'm not special. You're not special, sorry. Like we get to choose to do this. And we have our unique gifts for the planet. We have our unique frequency, and everyone has the same choice, no matter where they're born, no matter the experiences that they've had, no matter the things that they've walked through. We just get a different flavor of our essence through those things, right? They're giving us different information so that it actually becomes the tools that we use to help others. Like the hard stuff we walk through becomes our gift, you know? our mess becomes our message. Like the darkness that we went through, it's like, oh, I've got the tools for that now. Thank God. Someone's going through it. You're like, I have something for you, you know? And so we're always just walking each other home to like the greater community that we know could exist, which is, you know, a compassionate community of love, of understanding, of sharing our gifts, of gift culture. Like that's what it's all going towards. So thank you for being here. I think that's all I have to say about that. Center to circumference, center of your universe. Like you, if you imagine life that way, there's no higher power that's doing something to you. Like you are your mind, and what your world is reflecting is your mind. And it's so beautiful when you can see that, because then you can do something about it. Do I like it? Do I not like it? And really the truth is like, it's really not about duality of like and not like. I'm going to take that back right now. It's, is this the effect I desire to have? Because all the soul is looking to do, like when you're in the center of your circumference and resonating on a certain frequency, you're going to attract in certain things, and it's going to be just cause and effect. When I'm in this experience, I'm getting effect on my soul. Do I desire this? If it's a no, go have a different cause and effect experience. Go check something else out, you know? And then life doesn't have to be so serious. You can move your mind back to innocence, where it's playful, where you're curious about how is this going to feel? And then you're like, you're not stuck in anything. How's this job going to feel? Don't like it? That's okay. I can go do something else. How's this relationship going to feel? Don't like it? That's fine. You know? And the thing is like, we're trained in this society to think that like we need to make a plan and stick to it and like be contracted in it. And like everyone's gonna be disappointed if we let them down. But when you're in the center of your circumference, you're gonna do what's good for you. And what's good for you is gonna be good for everyone around you, no matter what that is. Because you're always moving yourself closer back to how you wanna resonate, how you wanna experience life, you know? And so that's all we're doing. Imagining ourselves as energy, putting ourselves in the mind of innocence, knowing that we're the center of our own universe, that everything is just the cause and effect upon us, that our mind is just reflecting everything, and we get to dance with it. And then we just take like the edge, take the edge off of life a little bit, naturally, of course, without any, you know, and it just becomes more fun. So thank you for coming on here and joining me live. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. Christina said, I freaking love it. Yeah, it's so funny. I was like, I always keep coming back to like, what did I love hearing when I was in this journey? And that's where I'm going with all of these series. It's like, oh, I just needed to hear these things, because so often we can spiral, right? Because life is so busy and hectic, and we're in this modern day world. But we also have a choice to find our center. And in center, you're the eye of the storm. When life is just spiraling around you, it's like, okay, cool. Just gonna do my thing, keep to my own lane. And everything else that's happening is just for me anyway. And so I get to work with it. I get to use this data and process it. And then if I don't like the cause and the effect, I get to shift it up a little bit. And you also give permission for other people to do the same. For people to see your bravery. People might judge you, and that's okay, right? But you have to live inside of you, so you have to make the best choices for you. So thanks for coming on here. I love all of you. I'm going to link my membership in here. I'm actually going to change it to like all sexes because it was for females before, and I'm going to start to slowly shift and bring in more of these like really foundational practices, which honestly are good for men and women, anyone who you are. So it's a great time to love yourself. There's no better time than right now, and to cultivate these practices. Aw, Shailene, I'm so grateful to have found you. Yeah, that's what it's about, right? It's about finding our community and finding our people and feeling like we have people that understand us. There's nothing better, honestly. It's heart medicine. Okay, love to all of you. Have a beautiful, beautiful day, and I'll see you next week for our next little dialogue, Dharma talk. Bye.